As fantastic a CFP as Mel O is, as wonderful an attorney as I am, and as good as Stormy is at whatever it is he does, please do note that anything said in our podcasts are our opinions alone and are not meant to be taken as financial or legal advice.
Welcome to Finances, the Other F Word, a Gen Xer podcast for musicians and music lovers, where we discuss money and music without all the pretentious bullshit. Here are your hosts, Zoe Terry, attorney at large, Stormy Andrews, founder of Yokel Local Marketing, and Mel O, certified financial planner and author of Finances, the Other F Word. Listener discretion is advised.
Two, one.
Hey guys, welcome to Finances, the Other F Word. Today on the podcast, we are going to be talking about rock festivals, profitability, and their rise. And so for those of you who are Gen Xers, if you remember in the 80s, we had a lot of the big concert series like USA for Africa with the We Are the World, Farm Aid. Willie Nelson used to actually host that. And Live Aid, where, I can't, and now I just completely forgot the guy's name, but he was able to coordinate across multiple continents a whole bunch of bands. And that's, of course, if you've seen Bohemian Rhapsody, that was their big, crescendo coup de grace. At the end of it was this, Live Aid show that Queen played and all that kind of stuff. And the timeline was off a little bit on that movie, but whatever. And so in the 80s, when we had big concerts and things like that, it was always wrapped around a cause. It was always one specific thing that everybody was going for, kind of like the Comedy Relief, where you remember you had Whoopi Goldberg and Billy Crystal and Robin Williams, rest in peace.
All right.
Yeah, where they would do, fighting homelessness and those types of things.
Bob Geldof. Sorry, I couldn't.
Thank you. No, I know.
Oh,
and
was that
I want to
Bobcat?
say,
Bob
no,
Geldof.
Gandalf. And every time I think of him, I think Wizard. And I'm like, the wizard. I was going to say the wizard guy. And so,
from the Boomtown Rats.
And the fact that he could even pull off Live Aid is fucking unbelievable. I mean, I know everybody is hot and bothered over Bohemian Rhapsody right now because Queen performed there, but he got Led Zeppelin to perform. Okay, so after Bonham died, Led Zeppelin was like, fuck it, we're calling it quits. They didn't perform. I think that they have performed twice since Bonham died, and one of them was at Live Aid. So the fact that the Gandalf guy... Gandalf, whatever. I'm going to call him Gandalf because I like that way better. It's super cool. Wizard.
Who am I thinking of? I keep thinking Bobcat.
Go Wait. No, Go
Wait.
Wait. Yeah.
Okay.
He was in the Police Academy movies.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
I
That's
love
not
him.
the same guy you're talking about?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, but he was hilarious. And then there was the little she was a little black lady in the movies. And she would always be like, oh, no, you guys need to sit down. Then she's like, freeze, dirtbag. I loved her. She was absolutely, Police Academy movies. Seriously,
Best.
go watch them.
Yeah.
They're awesome, but only to the third one. And then after that, they got really, really bad. But anyway, back to, I'm going to call him Gandalf. The fact that he could orchestrate.
Sir Bob Geldof.
Oh, he's a sir?
He's a
Of course
sir?
he is, yeah.
Are you sure about that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Sir Gandalf.
Geldof.
That he could pull it off was absolutely amazing. But then what we ended up seeing is the rise of music festivals coming in really the 1990s. You had the Warped Tour come out. You had Lollapalooza by Perry Farrell from Jane's Addiction. And you had Lilith Fair, which I never really got into. Then we had offshoots. We had Ozfest and had a lot of great bands on Ozfest. Seen Ozfest a couple times. Then Motley Crue broke out with Crue Fest and Warped Tour. And it was, punk music and that kind of stuff. And then you started seeing the real rise of the rock festivals coming in the 90s. And I think it's because... right around the time of the 90s, we started having we've talked about this before, the pirated music.
Right.
Where people could go online and they could actually download songs for free. And so what we started seeing was a shift from the focus of artists and musicians making their primary income from selling music into the shift of performing and, being at these big festivals and things like that. And so that's kind of the way that that they came up in the 90s. And now, of course, music festivals are still huge. There's a lot of huge metal festivals overseas, which I've yet to be to, that have 100,000 people. It's just insane.
Really?
Yes. And it's so nice. Metal in Europe has never died. In the States, not so much. But in Europe, it still has a strong foothold. So I know that on a couple podcasts back, you guys might remember we talked about the Glastonbury Festival.
Glastonbury?
Right.
Berry. Jesus fucking Christ.
Yes.
You two are deaf as doornails or...
So the Glastonbury Festival, which I believe Beck performed at, if I remember correctly.
I believe he may have done.
Yeah. And so...
There was a comedy tent.
There was a comedy tent.
There's always a comedy tent.
That was actually the whole festival was just the comedy tent and Beck, and then everything in between was completely irrelevant. But anyway, so Zoe is going to enlighten us a little bit about what the music festivals were happening about going on overseas, and then we'll kind of take it back to one of the largest music festivals here, and we'll talk a little bit about everything that goes in as far as money-wise into organizing a rock festival. So I will kick it away to my co-host across the pond.
Hello. G'day, mate.
Hello.
Oh, good Lord. So one of the oldest festivals in England is the Isle of Wight Festival, which was Europe's equivalent of Woodstock, which started in 1968. And the lineup...
Wait. When was our Woodstock? It was 68, right?
I thought ours was in 69.
No, it must have been before then because ours was the equivalent of Woodstock. So you look that up while I keep talking because you two are just dead set on interrupting me.
No, we're participating. I think Woodstock was 68, but that wouldn't make sense if they were both released in 68. But anyway, okay, we got Stormy Googling it.
Okay, so the headliners in 68 were Jefferson Airplane, The Doors, The Who, Jimi Hendrix. It's still going on now. This year, the headliners are Garbage, James, Fatboy Slim, and please, Stormy, one more time, can you say one of my favorite bands for me?
Wet.
Wait. There's no way that fucking Wet is headlining.
No, they're not headlining, but I didn't even know they were still together. But when I was researching this and I saw that Wet were even playing, it was just kismet. I mean, it brings all of our podcasts so nicely together.
Well, I know, we're amazing at doing that, but I still don't know who would go to the festival to see Wet.
Well, it's like,
but they are on our Spotify playlist. So
Have you listened to them?
I listened to the playlist after I created it, and I was not overly enjoyed over head over heels with Wet, but great name. So
yeah, and remember, this was a band that I enjoyed when I was 15. I'm now 46.
Yeah, but you're still kind of flying the banner for him. So
no,
yes.
I'm flying the banner as my 15-year-old self. I'm not saying that I would. I mean, I'd love to, and they don't have Marty Pellow as the lead singer anymore, so I really have zero interest in seeing them. But anyway, that's the Isle of Wight Festival. Now, the most globally renowned, world's largest greenfield festival, which you two mercilessly took the piss out of me for, is the Glastonbury Festival, which is started in 1970. It's in Somerset in the southwest of England. The first one, as I said, was in 1970. It was launched the day after Jimi Hendrix died. The first ever one, 1,500 people attended, and it was £1 for a ticket.
So what's
a pound of what?
Fuck me, you're all hilarious.
Actually, that was awesome. High five on that. That was fucking great. Because the sterling pound is actually more than the dollar right now still, because they were able to stay out of the whole European Union debacle and getting on the euro. So good for Britain in that aspect.
Not anymore. You mean about all
the
Brexit.
But you guys were on the contract side, but you were able to keep your own currency, which actually really, if not Brexit, would be 3,000 times worse than it already is.
If that's possible.
Or May. Good Lord.
But now the tickets are £248 per ticket, and this year they sold out in 36 minutes. That's how quickly they sold out.
This is Glastonbury. Okay.
The person who founded it is still runs it now. It's called Michael Eavis. Back when it started, headliner was the Kinks and Mark Bolan. Now you have people like the Killers, The Cure, Kylie Minogue, Janet Jackson, all kinds of people. Like I said, it's the most well-attended festival in England. They have brought in £325 million from ticket sales alone since it started. And I have been just the once, and as you know, my recollection is fairly minimal, but I do, and it's a huge event, 5 days worth of, I think, fun from what I remember, depending on where you're at. There's comedy, there's music, there's all kinds of shenanigans.
5 days? 5 days of a music
5
festival?
days of shenanigans?
Damn.
Yeah.
That's a lot of days.
That's a lot of shenanigans.
It's a lot of days.
Yeah. I think it is anyway. Anyway, so that's Glastonbury, and it, like I said, although you mock me, it is the world's largest greenfield festival.
What,
in England.
Greenfield?
What's a greenfield festival? Is
I
that
know.
like
I don't know what that means.
As it's out in the open. It's not inside a stadium. It's out in the open.
But the ones that they do here in the United States are like on a brownfield dirt festival or
Yeah.
sand.
And if they're in Vegas, that's for real.
Yeah, they're on
Yeah.
the dirt festival.
Thank you. So, the next one I'm going to talk about, I absolutely positively have never attended because it's heavy metal. It used to be Monsters of Rock, and in 2003 it became Download, and it's England's most famous heavy metal festival. In 2003 they had Iron Maiden, Metallica, Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
Last year they had Ozzy, Guns N' Roses. It's held in the north of England in June. It's a 5-day festival. Tickets are £220.
Is that per day?
No, for the 5 days.
Wow, well, that's a fucking bargain. For 5 days of festival, that's a bargain.
For 5 days of head
5
fuck
days.
music, I guess so.
Dude,
But you couldn't pay me to go.
First of all, half of those bands are from England, so you're talking shit about your own people. I mean,
Yeah.
you said Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Ozzy, Black Sabbath. They're all from England.
I didn't say Judas Priest once, but
Well,
well,
Judas
well
Priest-
misheard.
They play, yeah. Well, Judas Priest. I know Judas Priest has played that festival before. So my point is that you probably shouldn't talk crap about them because
No,
they kind of put England on the map. I'm just saying.
Don't forget about
just-
Lenny Kravitz.
He's not metal.
British.
He's not British, and
He
he's
has a
not
British
metal.
accent.
But
Does
thanks
he
for
really?
joining in.
I thought.
No, but I'll tell you something about
But he
Lenny
did show his
Kravitz.
butt. He did show his butt in that video, and I was very thankful.
A, he is fine. B,
Yes.
he has a daughter called Zoe. And C, he has a wonderful song called Flowers for Zoe. Put that on your Spotify playlist.
All right, I will make
Okay,
sure
flowers
that
for Zoe.
Oh,
But yeah.
it's lovely.
So that reminds me of a book, Flowers for Algernon, which is completely
irrelevant.
no, which is a completely depressing book. It was the book that the movie Awakenings with Robin Williams and I think it was Robert De Niro was based on. So I'm just saying, don't get super excited about having a song that says Flowers for Zoe because not everybody's going to think about that the same way. But good
Okay.
for you. Good
Thanks.
for you. But yeah, does he have a British accent?
No.
I thought he
doesn't.
did.
No, he doesn't.
All I know is he had when he showed his butt in the All of My Life, Where Have You Been? Wonder If I'll Ever See You Again, that video, and he got out of the shower and he was walking away and he threw the towel kind of over the front part, which I was very upset about because I kind of wanted to kind of turn sideways and look at the camera just for me. Lenny, what's up?
Did he write a song for you though? No.
I don't think he wrote it for you either. I don't know. He might retract the song if he knew this conversation. He might be like, oh, not really great. Anyway,
Well-
so Lenny, if you want to send me a pic,
When
Holler at me.
I chat with him later, I'll get him to text one.
well, all the British people, they all know each other.
Yeah. So when I was doing some research, I found an article on consultancy.uk from June 16th, 2017, and they said music festivals in England attract 14 million visitors to the UK every year and bring in about £1 billion in revenue. So, and when I was looking at all the different music festivals, there are so many different music festivals that I hadn't even heard of, all different kinds of music. The main ones I've mentioned a few already. I've been to Glastonbury. I've been to V Festival was another one. It was sponsored by Virgin for the longest time. It started in 96. I went to V96 and it used to be called V96, V97, V98, whatever. But they pulled out of supporting it in 2017.
This is Branson.
Yeah.
Branson Virgin. Yeah. So, they just bought, his company just bought the Hard Rock down here off of the Strip. And there's a whole big controversy if they're going to keep the Hard Rock branding or if they're going to turn it into a Virgin hotel, which, I mean, I guarantee you there's not one Virgin in Hard Rock right now. I'll fucking bet money on that. And if you were, you didn't leave.
But I want to get back to the point because Zoe was talking about the Virgins. Then she says they pulled out. Explain that to me.
Dear me.
So my point is, they're not Virgins anymore. Whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. You guys have seen the advertising. It's true.
Hey, I did do some research, by the way, to dive in. Woodstock, August 15th through 18th, 1969.
Oh, so Intel is a little off. So I wonder if was it Glastonbury or was the other one?
Isle of Wight Festival was in 68.
Was
Isle
based.
of Wight.
So did they know Woodstock was going to happen? Because you can't really base on it if it was 68 and ours was 69.
Well, I said
it was the equivalent of Woodstock.
Oh, the equivalent. Okay, it wasn't based on it. So you didn't steal our idea.
No.
Okay.
No, of course, we came first. So.
No. We beat you, right?
Anyway.
Do you remember in the revolution we won? Okay, go ahead.
Well, I wasn't sure if Stormy had anything else interesting to add or if I should move on.
But please move on.
Well, some other interesting festivals in England is WOMAD, which is the World of Music, Arts and Dance, which was founded by Peter Gabriel in 1980.
Great musician.
He held the first one in 1982, and I believe that's still going now.
Now I have Sledgehammer in my head. That's all I can think about. Sledgehammer. Sorry.
But it features music and art from around the world. So that's that. I've never been. No desire. There's another one called Bestival, which is another one that was in the Isle of Wight for about 14 years.
It's a horrible name.
You say it's called Bestival?
Bestival with a B?
With a B.
Wow.
But that
Can
one...
you imagine everybody sitting around? They're like, hey, it's like, what should we name it? Well, it's the best festival. So how about... Bestival. Oh, my God. What? High five. Fucking drop the mic. Everybody goes for a beer.
You would hate it all the more, Mel O.
Is it country?
No, because people would... It was crazy because people would go, it had different themes and people would attend in fancy dress, and it had it was in the Guinness World Book of Records for having 55,000 people in fancy dress one
dear
world.
God. Wow. You know what that reminds me of?
One year.
You remember when the Grammys and the Oscars, when everybody used to show up in the 80s, you would see them, they were all suits and ties and they would like pan the audience and they're all like fucking as stuffed as they can. Even like the first VMAs, they were all in suits and stuff, and then that's when Madonna did the Like a Virgin thing where she was rolling all over the floor and basically doing soft porn on the stage, and all these people are in like black tie affairs and all that kind of stuff. So but a music festival going in a black tie, that sounds awful.
But as I said, in about 2018 they went into the equivalent of bankruptcy, but it's
called bankruptcy in England?
Yeah, I hate you. And so they're carrying on at a different venue. And last year they had Chaka Khan and Grace Jones.
Chaka Khan would be great. Chaka Khan. Let me rock you, Chaka Khan.
And I've met Chaka Khan, by the way.
How?
So, I know someone who is in her family, and I've sat on her bed and spoken to her.
Wait, why are you on Chaka Khan's bed?
That's another story for another day.
That's going to be an exclusive podcast.
Yep,
that's some crazy shit right there.
So anyway, there's multiple other festivals. We love our music in. I have to tell you one. No, I won't. It's not that funny. I was going to say it's funny, but it's kind of not. There was another festival. I'm going to say it anyway, obviously, because I'm carrying on.
Go for it.
It's not funny, but I'm going to say it anyway. A big festival that was up in Scotland called Tea in the Park actually was...
What is with these names?
Tea in the Park?
Oh,
what's wrong with that?
God, I want to throat punch everybody who attends that. Yeah, we're going to Tea in the Park.
Okay, well, I think it was a pretty good one, but anyway, they had to has been on hiatus since 2016. One of the reasons being that they found a rare osprey nest in the park.
Oh, yeah, you got to protect them.
Yeah.
And, you don't want to step on osprey eggs while you're in your black tuxedo.
Hey, talking about stepping on people, okay?
Okay, I don't know how this segue goes. But
this
all
segue
right.
is beautiful.
Okay.
So there was 500,000 people in attendance at Woodstock, right?
Right.
How many people died? Do you know the answer?
2.
2. One from a drug overdose.
Yeah.
How did the other person die?
Choked on his own vomit? Oh, no, that would be drug related.
No, and I actually know this. And I keep wanting to say was stabbed, but that was a Rolling Stones. That was a Rolling Stones concert.
This poor soul was sleeping in his or her
That's
sleeping
right.
bag.
In the
tractor ran over.
cornfield. Yes, in the cornfield, and the guy on the tractor did not see him and ran him over.
Oh, what a way to go.
Yeah, at a concert.
He had to be drunk.
See the segue?
Yeah, that actually,
Stepping
you know what?
on someone?
That was solid segue.
That's how I roll.
Solid segue. Disturbing that you knew that trivia. Little disgusting and disturbing, but yeah, good for you.
And that was another reason, actually, why Tea in the Park is on hiatus, because there were 3 drug-related deaths, a rape, and some kind of deadly designer drug. So
Yeah, well, it's always the blue acid, right? I mean, that was the whole thing at Woodstock where they said if you took the blue acid, please go to the medical tent, and everybody didn't. They were so fucked up they didn't know if they took the blue acid or not, and they were just like all of a sudden they inundated the medical tent and those types of things. But I mean, none of the. I don't know if any of the music festivals now could rival Woodstock. Obviously Woodstock '99 was a complete fucking disaster. They burn everything and they were covered in mud and they were just complete douchebags. And now they have a new Woodstock coming out festival, and I didn't see who actually headlined that or is headlining that, but I don't know. I kind of. You know what? I think Woodstock was just a once in a lifetime kind of thing, and to try to revive it later, especially with, you got the Summer of Love and, all the hippies, and then you try to revive it now and put profit on it. It's just absolutely pointless and stupid. But one of the biggest festivals, we named a couple of them at the top of the podcast over here on the stateside, is obviously Coachella. And, there's Burning Man and those types of things, but Coachella is the one that seems to keep attracting, larger and larger audiences and more and more talent. And so I did a little digging into actually the festivals, and I came up with a couple things that I thought was very interesting. So one of the things is the people that owns the Coachella Festival is AEG, and they actually purchased Golden Voice. I think they purchased Golden Voice, and they kept the festival. And the thing with Coachella is that the first couple of years of Coachella, it actually lost money.
Really?
And it lost it pretty hefty. Yeah, it wasn't a profitable concert. And anyway, so AEG took it over, and I was very curious to see if AEG was a publicly traded company where you could find them on the New York Stock Exchange. And of course, they're not on the New York Stock Exchange. They're still privately held. So the information I could pull on the CEOs and their salaries and things like that, I was very interested in that, was very limited because they don't have to tell you.
Right.
I mean, they're not publicly traded. It's nobody's fucking business. And so I got kind of, a ballpark for the CEOs of the AEG company, and something really, really popped out at me. So their salary is actually technically on the low end for that industry. So they're about, 400,000-ish, give or take a little bit on either side. And like I said, as far as an industry standard, they're actually less than other industries, other people in their industry. Their bonuses run also on the low end of about 550,000. So you're only making about $1 million, right? So yeah, so that struck out to me because what you're constantly hearing in the financial world is you're hearing the discrepancy between what the CEOs actually make versus what their employees actually make, and that the discrepancy has widened so vastly since I think it was the 90s. There was a ruling that was passed where they took kind of a cap off of the CEO compensation and those types of things. And all of a sudden, we just see this massive spread between employees and what the CEOs of the companies are actually making. And it's really kind of feeding into the difference between the class system that we have, where we have the 1% and we have the 99%. But now what we're starting to see is the gap between the 1% versus the other percent. The middle class is fading away. But when I saw that, I was like, okay, $1 million in salary for a company that is big enough to host Coachella, who just in the last year has brought in over $100 million gross. Right. Okay, so you're thinking, all right, he makes $1 million. He has one event. This company, I mean, they do other events, but they have this one specific event, brings in over $100 million. You would think, okay, that's not too crazy. But then what we look at is we start looking at their options and their bonus structure.
Okay.
And not their bonus structure, I'm sorry, their options. So this is where the discrepancy between CEOs and employees really start coming in, is it's all of the different options that they have. So you have a privately held company and you have a publicly held company, and options mean different things. But what ends up happening is that when you are a CEO in a privately held company, you have the ability that you have options that you can exercise at any time, or not at any time, but after a certain time limit, depending on how the options are actually structured, where you can buy an additional percentage of the company and own more of the company. And this is where the class system and the discrepancy really starts kicking in, because with the gentleman on the board that I was able to get some kind of numbers on, we talked about salary about $400,000, bonuses about $500,000 to $550,000, options in the company were $32 million.
Wow.
So what you have is you have this regulation that I'm talking about that came off during the 90s, where all of a sudden this is what has widened this gap so much between the employees and the CEOs, is it's these options. Now, if it's a publicly traded company, there might be warrants or rights or something like that, where they can actually purchase the publicly traded stock for a certain dollar amount, usually below what it's actually going in the marketplace. They hold it for a certain amount of time, and then they can sell it at a huge gain, which is the reason why when you're talking about the 1%, their capital gains tax is such a big deal. So you have short-term gains and you have long-term gains. Short-term gains are a year or less, usually taxed ordinary income rates, and then you have the higher, after 366 days, you have long-term capital gains. And this is why, for affluent clients and affluent people, this is why the capital gains tax is such a big deal, because they often have these built-in compensation packages where they're actually not paid that much in salary, but the money that they have in options and those types of things is drastic. And then you have them taxed, in most cases, more beneficial than people, Joe Schmoes like us, who actually make a salary. We actually get taxed higher than them. And that's, part of this whole thing going on with the taxes right now, which we'll talk about in a different episode. And that was really, really striking to me. And then the other thing is, I was looking at these numbers, like I said, Coachella, when they first came out for the first couple years, they were actually losing money. Even when they sold and AEG bought them, they still lost money. And so I was like, man, I really want to dig into these numbers. I want to see what would make a festival that big actually lose money. And so I wanted to just kind of start, kind of scribbling some down ideas as far as some of the actual expenses and things that might come out of a festival this size. And I have a couple of them. So my question to you two is just think of a music festival, any kind of festival that you can think of. Tell me some of the expenses that you think that you might, you just off the top of your head, things you might have to pay for.
Porta potties.
Porta potties. Okay. So in Washington, we call them honey buckets. And I actually do have that on my list. And honey buckets are...
Oh, that's funny. I always call them love shacks.
Ew. You better not.
Only you.
There is not enough hand sanitation. So I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. So in Washington State, honey buckets are big, and they have these little stickers that have a honey and a honey hive, and they put 5 stickers in the honey bucket. And what happens is when people go to festivals, everybody runs into all of the honey buckets to try to steal these stickers, because you can't get them anywhere else. And once they're gone, and they're called honey buckets. But
Wow.
Okay.
yeah, I don't have one, because I'm always, I guess, the last in the porta potty, because I hold it until I'm just about to pee on the floor. So porta potties, good one. Okay, so give me some other ones. Security. Okay.
What about the entertainers?
Right, talent. Mm-hmm. Food. Okay, well, food's a little different, but yep, food.
Oh.
Insurance.
Oh, big
yes,
one. Yep.
Insurance is a big one. Couple different types of insurance. Because this is the thing why this fascinated me so much, is because I've been going to concerts since I was probably 17 years old, and I know there's a lot of people that had the chance to go to them before me, but I didn't have any siblings. So I didn't have anybody take me, so I got fucked, and I didn't start to get going to concerts till I was like 17 years old and that kind of stuff. And so I remember seeing AC/DC on the Razor's Edge tour for $22. And I have ticket stubs back in the day from AC/DC and from Motley Crue Dr. Feelgood tour. We're talking $20, $30. And now you look at some of these festival tickets, and if you're looking at Coachella tickets, you're looking at in excess of $350 plus. You can camp on the grounds, or if you don't want to live in a tent for a couple days, which I wouldn't, then you get a hotel and you have all these other types of things. And I'm like, man, I understand inflation, but why the fuck do these things cost so much?
Right.
Okay. And especially if you're talking about some of the metal festivals, unless you're talking about a new metal festival, if you're talking about a big festival that might have your Iron Maidens and your Judas Priest and those types of things, even though these are legends and legacy talent, they're not as in high demand as they used to be. So I would assume that they would not garner as high of a fee. So I'm like, okay, so is it all the talent? Well, it's not necessarily the talent, and it leads into some of these other things. So when I started really digging into it, it just blew my mind, and I got so freaking excited because I just wish I had a budget sheet for Coachella. I just want to see their budget. I want to see their budgets, and I want to see their sub-budgets, and I want to see how they're making money, because there are so many expenses that go out in one of this. And so it kind of helped me feel a little bit better for those tickets being so expensive. But remember that they're still grossing, as we've already said, over $100 million. So obviously we have to pay for the CEOs' salaries and bonuses, which we already, options we already talked about. But we also have to worry about, of course, sounds and lights, which usually come with the venue if they're just a basic setup, but nobody wants a basic sound and light setup, and so they ends up usually costing more. Security, of course, we talked about. Then there's the venue fees, and then there's VIP section fees, and then there's the labor. So when you have the ushers and you have the ticket takers and you have all that kind of stuff, that might be staff members from the venue, but that comes out of the pocket of the person who's actually renting the venue.
Right.
And so that's a little bit off. Then you have festival insurance in case you don't sell out or somebody gets hurt. Then you have workers' comp insurance. So you're providing, liability coverage just in case somebody gets hurt, but then you're also covering a workers' comp policy just in case any of the people that are working for the venue, if they get hurt, it doesn't go on the venue's workers' comp, it goes on yours.
Right.
And so Stormy's familiar with this. You have staff members. So,
Yep.
Yeah, so how workers' comp works. And, yeah, I can tell we all love it. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Woohoo.
Great stuff. Plus, the city that you actually have the venue in takes a cut of the ticket. Then oftentimes, because Ticketmaster has a monopoly, and I still don't understand how we haven't been able to break them up, and Pearl Jam waged a huge fight against them in the 90s to circumvent them, and had all these different checkpoints with all these different ticket styles to get around all the security things, trying to beat Ticketmaster. And it was wonderful. And it was like, yeah, fuck them, corporation, this is 90s grunge. But it didn't have an effect. It didn't go anywhere. So Ticketmaster continues to add on surcharges. Down here in Vegas, there's a couple venues. If you go to like Mandalay Bay, they'll waive the resort fee if you actually buy them there. And there's one other casino that does that. But then, of course, you have the talent. You have the additional stage setups. Then you need a promoter's license in Vegas. And typically, in order to be a promoter, you need to have worked under a promoter. That all costs money. Then you have, we talked about this in the other podcast, royalties. You have to pay the licensing for the royalties. And if you pay the licensing for the concert, and then if you video record it, which a lot of people do with Coachella, then that's a different licensing, and then you have to cover all of that. And then you have sales tax, which is usually passed on to the consumer.
Right.
And faculty services. And then you have cleanup, sanitation, advertising, radio giveaways. And if you are giving away VIP tickets to get free advertising on the radio, you pay a surcharge for giving somebody those VIP tickets, and recording equipment and travel of the bands. And then, of course, if you end up refunding the tickets, then that actually comes back to you. And that reminded me, and I talk about this in my book, but I was supposed to go see, it was Great Wight and Cinderella and some other band that opened up. And Cinderella why can't I think of the guy's name now? There's 1,000 people screaming at me right now his name. But anyway, he ended up getting laryngitis or something like that. And so Warrant stepped in, and this is when Janie Lane was still alive. And we were at the South Coast. That's the one kind of towards Henderson, right?
Yep.
We're at
Las
the South
Vegas Boulevard.
Yeah, we're at the South Coast.
No, South Point.
No, not South Point.
Coast is up in Summerlin.
Sunset Station. Yeah.
Got it.
There's so many casinos that all sound familiar. So Sunset Station, and Warrant stepped in. Great Wight was the second band on. They killed it. They did amazing. I love Great Wight with their new singer at the time, who's now since left after Jack Russell. Anyway, and Janie Lane was so fucked up. He is literally, and I've seen Ozzy. Okay, I've seen Ozzy by himself. I've seen Ozzy with Black Sabbath, and this motherfucker is always fucked up. But Janie Lane was so wasted. When he came on the stage, he was staggering all over the place, and he sounded awful. We had just gotten a bucket of beers, and the way it works in the casinos is that you have a drink in the casino, but you can't take that drink out into the actual concert and vice versa, even though they're on the same property. Total bullshit. We had bought a bucket of beers. Janie Lane hits the stage. Band sounds amazing. Never was a huge Warrant fan. He's so fucked up. He's staring into the abyss, and he's singing like every other word, and then the chorus comes, and then he starts singing the actual lyrics, and he's so wasted. And within 2 songs, everybody just stood up and started flipping them off and booing him. These are Warrant fans.
Wow.
Jumping up into the spotlight, flipping them off, booing him. I think we stayed through half of the 3rd song, and we're like, fuck, we just bought these bucket of beers. I'm like, I'm not listening to this. We slammed the bucket of beers. I'm very proud of that. And as we came out, Sunset Station refunded all of our money, which casinos don't do.
Right. It was that bad.
It was that bad. And
Okay.
then they played Rocklahoma, I want to say like within the next couple days, and then they fired Janie Lane, and then he died of alcoholism. And so I was thinking at the time, hey, this is awesome that they're all refunding the tickets. But now I'm thinking, okay, but all of those tickets were obtained through Ticketmaster and the venue agreements and all that kind of stuff. And so that ended up maybe putting the concert into the red. I'm not really sure. But I mean, I was just fascinated. And after I was done with that, I thought, okay, maybe there's a reason why the festival tickets are so expensive. But again, don't forget that, of course, these people are grossing tons and tons of money once you have a good solid brand like Coachella. And it just absolutely blew me away, because I always assumed that the talent was going to be the most expensive thing.
Sure.
But if you ration the talent out, the ratio per ticket sales, it's actually not that much compared to all of the other ways that they actually pick your pocket. So I'm not okay with the price of the tickets still for the rock festivals, but at least I kind of understand it. So now the next time I go, I'm going to be staring at everything, and the venues take a percentage of merchandise.
Nice.
What the fuck does it have to do with you? I don't understand. If my band is selling a T-shirt, it just absolutely blew my mind. Plus, they have to approve everything. So anyway, I just thought that was absolutely outstanding, and I really would love to see the actual final budget on a festival the size of Coachella, because that just would be absolutely stimulating. I was pretty excited about it.
Good for you. And Coachella is the highest grossing festival in the world, right?
Yes, from what I read, that's
my
correct.
understanding too.
Yeah, but it was kind of sad, because think of, any of these small promoters. Like, we have a small promoter here in Vegas that is always bringing in, like, he'll bring in, Too Short, or he'll bring in, well, not Nate Dogg because he's passed, but that kind of caliber, and he does self-promoting, and he always has the neon yellow signs that he puts up on all the intersections.
Right.
And he sells out his venues. But the thing is that for him somebody his size, to make the leap into a Coachella size,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's, and again, it goes back to the class section, the separation of the classes. And I don't know. I was happy, but I was pretty bummed out about it too.
Wow.
Yeah. Anything to add, Stormy?
I've got nothing to add to that one.
Nothing? No, nothing. No stories of Glastonbury or anything else.
Yeah, every time I bring up my stories, I get shot down.
All right. Well, we will have our Spotify playlist on there for you guys to come find us at Finances Are Their F Word under Mel O CFP. Okay, so you can follow you can follow us at Finance is the Other F Word.
Absolutely.
And we will have pictures, and we will have amazing pictures of all of us when we were younger. And you will see my chick mullet, and I rocked it like a champion.
And
You'll see my dude mullet, and I rocked it like a
And you'll
champion.
see the haircut that made my grandmother cry. And
It makes me cry
and
every time I
it
see
makes
it.
me cry even now. But
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.
See you soon.
Cheerio.
Be sure to check out our Finances the Other F Words playlists for each episode on Spotify.